They could have 3 losses by now.
I don't know about that.
They are not that good.
Put Florida State in there, I would say yes to that, what you just said.
One return by Caleb Downs. And he finds a seam. He makes the punter look silly. Caleb Downs, show him what you got. Touchdown, Bama.
I'm going to drive now for UTEP. And they will keep it on the ground. Awad just gets pile-driven by Stutzman.
Really haven't even tried from the shotgun.
That throw's intercepted. Pierce down the sideline. Touchdown.
Claiborne, the sophomore, has 1 score so far this season. Griffiths will buy a little bit of time. Falling down, lost the football. Play is still live. And recovered by the Monarchs. Lamarian James will take it the other way for the ODU touchdown.
Welcome back to Devy IDP Grind. I'm Hollywood Titan. I'm joined by my co-host Justice. What's going on, my friend?
Not much. Just, crazy time in college football as always. The portal doesn't, quote, officially open for a couple days, I think.
3 more days.
But it's already pretty hot
insane.
and heavy. Yeah. It's, I don't know, like, you see a lot of fan bases complain. They don't like it. And like, I certainly understand that. And I agree. Like, as a fan, I don't like it either. But at the end of the day, like, it's not going to change. It's not going anywhere. So I just feel like folks need to learn to live with it because it's just not. That's just the way it is. That's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, it's definitely now that the door's been opened. Like you said, it's not going anywhere. It's, players can transfer at will now, and then you've got this whole NIL thing, which has just been the cherry on top of it. Right now, they have even more incentive. If they don't like where they're playing and somebody wants to give them a little bit more money or whatever, or incentives or perks, whatever you want to call it, they can just leave. So this definitely isn't going nowhere. It's here to stay, and I don't know that we've even seen the worst of it yet. Because this is all still kind of new. All this is. I mean, the portal's been around, but not like this.
I'm waiting for the day, and I want to say we saw it at the Division III level last year, where the entire team leaves. I'm waiting for that to happen. It's going to happen at some point, right?
Right.
I'm pretty sure it was a Division III school that happened last offseason, and they ended up just dropping football. So I'm waiting for the day that happens. I feel like it's going to happen at some point, right? Like the whole team's going to say, screw this, we're out of here. You see it happen in basketball. It happens in basketball quite a bit. But you only got 5 players on the court at once. And so it feels like a lot more manageable of a situation than football if you're losing, 85, 105 players at a time.
Yeah, it's crazy, and you're probably right. It's probably going to happen at some point where an entire team just says, "Screw it, we're out." Hopefully, it doesn't get to that, but I won't be shocked if it does. Not at this point. Not the way things have been transpiring and laying out. It's like you said, it's probably going to happen at some point. It's been a couple weeks since we recorded, but man, there's so much news out there that I just kind of cherry pick the top news. There's, like you said, there's a ton of portal news. So I picked, a few there. And I picked a few recruiting pieces because there's just so much of it. Best way to follow what I'm seeing is go over to our Discord because I'm trying to post all of that stuff there. Certain players, players in the portal, players that's being committed now to teams. But before we get to that, Mack Brown is gone from North Carolina now. And just yesterday, I think it was, the Tar Heels interviewed former NFL head coach Bill Belichick for that position. I thought he would be back in coaching. I thought he'd be coaching this year, but I definitely thought he'd be coaching somewhere, and I thought it would be the NFL. However, I didn't think it would be in college. I just didn't see him wanting to go that route. But if they can pull it off, what a get, right, for them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't see Bill Belichick wanting to deal with the college football players of today. I just don't. I don't know. Like, to me, this feels like a, for lack of a better word, publicity stunt to try to draw interest, like from NFL, say, hey, colleges want him. You should be interested in him. His personality, man, like, I just don't see it working well in college football, personally. Now, he can probably drum up some business and some money, no doubt about that. But like, his interaction with the players, I just don't see that going very well with today's players, personally, especially in college football, right? It's one thing in the NFL where they're getting paid, whether they like you or not, they got to deal with you. College, they can just say, peace out, see you later.
True. Yeah, it just doesn't seem like a fit for him. I agree with you on that.
And he's old. He's old. I mean, like,
yes.
Like, you just got rid of Mac Brown because he's old, and then you're gonna hire someone just as old. Like, right. I don't know. Like, it just doesn't. Again, I think it sounds like a publicity stunt to me, to drum up interest for the NFL for him, because I don't know.
Yeah, because he's closing in on the NFL win record, right?
I have no idea.
I think he is. So, to me, I would think that he would want to stay in the NFL and kind of chase that record, kind of cement his legacy that he's already got built. But, yeah, weird fit. Shout out to Toronto Dave for joining us today. Thanks, man. Staying with head coaches, Utah State and Bronco Mendenhall have finalized a six-year deal for him to be their next head coach. That's a dang good hire for them. He is a really damn good coach.
Yeah, and then the offensive coordinator Beck went to Utah. So I imagine you will see some New Mexico players go to Utah State now, and perhaps one or two go to Utah as well.
Yep. Staying with the head coaching, former Utah, Florida, and Ohio State head coach Urban Meyer has expressed some interest into returning to coaching, and he's also said that he is not looking to replace Ryan Day. That's not something he's interested in, but apparently he's got the itch to coach again, so that could be an interesting hire for someone.
Man, I don't know. So much baggage.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know, like, I just don't know who's going to want the baggage, right? Like, and the price tag, right? It's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be cheap, and then, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the baggage is, I mean, you can kind of deal with the price tag because you know what you're going to get as far as a coach and what he can bring there, but all the baggage, is it going to be worth it? I think that's going to be the big thing. But if somebody's willing to take that chance, he's proven to be a winner. He's proven to be a good coach. So I guess we'll have to see. And then this piece of news, I found it literally right before I started to jump on. Oklahoma State and head coach Mike Gundy are in a standoff. And so they're wanting him to agree to a restructured contract with a pay cut. And they've even had discussions of firing him with cause if he doesn't agree. So this has the makings of a mess right here. I don't even know where to begin with it. If that's the case, I have to imagine he's not going to want to take a pay cut. But
yeah, I wouldn't think so.
I mean, he's 40. He is a man.
They had a pretty crappy year though.
Yeah, they underperformed big time this year. I think back early in the season, they were predicted to have a chance to win that conference, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, they have. I mean, I don't think they won a conference game, right?
I don't believe so. Not that I can recall right off. I don't think so.
Yeah, not good. Not good.
Some player notes here. A favorite of ours, linebacker Sean Dolak of Buffalo, was named the MAC Defensive Player of the Year. He's also up for some national awards, the Burlsworth, and I think it's the Butkus Award that he's up for. Such a good player this year. He had a phenomenal season. Love to see that. We'll talk about him more here in a second. Little bit of portal news. And from what I can remember off the top of my head and made notes of, safety Dylan Thieneman of Purdue, he's entered the portal. He's got to be defensively one of the top prizes in the transfer portal. This reminds me a lot of Caleb Downs, except Caleb Downs, the whole situation with him was a little quicker, right? Nick Saban retired. Alabama had an immediate 30-day window, and Downs jumped in and went to Ohio State, and they did it relatively quick. As to where this is, the coach is in place. It's, it's just your normal transfer portal entry. If you're a team in college football, and let me back up. If you're a prominent team in college football, if you don't check in at least to see what it would cost to add him to your team, and you need secondary help, I don't know what you're doing as a coaching staff, because this dude is a freaking playmaker. If he can do what he's done at Purdue, imagine what he could do at an Alabama, Tennessee, or a Georgia, or, whoever. Somebody's fixing to get a steal right here, because this dude's a playmaker.
Yeah, he is. He's one of the, like you said, he's been one of the top safeties in college football the last 2 seasons. Be interesting to see who comes calling. A lot of teams can use his help for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even my Vols could use him. I would not hate on that at all.
The only thing I would say for purposes of college fantasy and IDP, I would venture to guess wherever he goes, he is not likely to put up the same statistics as he does at Purdue, just because there's probably going to be more talent around him.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I still think he'll put up big numbers.
Well, just look at Caleb Downs, right? Like,
right.
He was. I mean, not that Alabama wasn't talented, but he was just used different. Right. And so I would expect something similar for Thieneman. Obviously, that depends on where he goes, but yeah, there's a good chance he's going to have more talent around him. He's not going to have to do as much or be asked to do as much as he was at Purdue.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. 2023 freshman All-American edge Nate Johnson, so naturally he's a sophomore this year for App State, has entered the portal. He's a really good edge. I'm surprised that App State isn't trying. Well, I'm sure they probably are, but surprised that they're not trying to keep him.
Well, he didn't.
Not
He
sure
didn't.
why
He
he's
didn't.
wanting
He
to
did
leave.
not have a good sophomore season. So,
No.
I'm sure. Like, I don't know that he's gonna have necessarily the buzz that he thinks he's gonna have. Perhaps I don't know.
Right.
Because this season compared to last year was definitely a disappointment. He was
Agreed.
someone I thought would improve, and he didn't improve. Like from a statistical standpoint, he got worse this year. So it'll be interesting to see how he's viewed in the portal. Like I don't.
Yep.
I mean, maybe some P4 will come calling. I don't know, but also maybe it was a case of I didn't watch a ton of App State games. Other than the game against Old Dominion. Maybe it's a case of where folks we're double teaming them constantly. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I didn't. Usually, I watch a lot of App State. I mean, just because usually they play the early games or whatever. So I tend to watch quite a bit of it, but I didn't get to this year. Maybe in the off season, I'll go back and look. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he lands. And then this next one, it's not really an impact for fantasy or even college football, really. But it's the name, right? And it's a player that was super hyped because of the name, and it just hasn't panned out. And that's the defensive lineman for the Pitt Panthers, Donald Elliott, which, if you know, that's the nephew of the legend, the great Aaron Donald. So he's entering the portal. I would love to talk to someone who's a little more tuned in to the Pitt program. I know early before the season started, I had listened to a couple podcasts, and there was some hype around him, possibly getting to start. He'd had good training camps, had a good summer, spring practice and all that, and there was some hope there, and it just, for whatever reason, it's not translated. And I don't know if it's because he's too far down the depth chart now, he's wanting to move, or if he's looking for monetary stuff. I don't know what it is, and I don't really know why he's not panned out like everyone thought. High rated recruit, and when he first signed with Pitt, I thought, man, this is a really good opportunity for him, and it's just not panned out that way.
Yeah, it happens a lot, right? With with
Look at Corey Foreman.
Yeah. I mean, he had a little bit of a resurgence there for Fresno State, right? But he didn't he didn't light the world on fire or anything.
No. He surely didn't live up to the number one recruit in the class billing, or top three, whatever it was he was. But yeah, it just goes to show you how hard it is to predict success for high schoolers, right? I mean, I'm by no means, and I know you feel the same way. We're by no means as plugged in and glued to the high school scene like 247 and On Three and Rivals, all these big scouting services. And man, even they miss, right? I mean, they have these guys rated so high, and then when they hit the college level, it just doesn't happen. So be interesting to see. And like I said, there's a ton of more names we could sit here and talk about for hours on the portal. So, but yeah, just check them out on Discord. I'll be glad to chat with you over there. But that's it for the transfers. And then we had some recruiting. Same thing with recruiting. Go over there and check out the recruiting news, because there's a crap ton of that as well.
High school signing period was this week, the early signing period.
Yep. 5-star offensive lineman David Sanders, who's the number 7 player in the class, had been committed to Tennessee for a while, and then there were some rumblings late that Ohio State was about to flip him. But he did sign with Tennessee. 4-star defensive lineman David Sanders signs with Tennessee. He's probably going to be a defensive tackle more than he is edge, because he's a big dude. I think he's 6'3", 6'4", 285. So he's probably going to wind up on the interior. And then the one that was out there, the big fish that was out there defensively that hadn't committed was 5-star defensive lineman Justice Terry. And he just hadn't committed to anybody. There were some crystal balls and predictions he would go to Georgia. There were some that said Texas, and that's where he ultimately signed. So he is going to Texas, the number 9 player in the 25 class. So that's a huge get for Texas. You're going to need those type of players to play in the SEC and to win an SEC. So huge get for them. And then on 3, released their 2024 True Freshman All-American team. I've got it posted on Discord as well. But on defense, they went with edge Dylan Stewart, and they had him as their freshman of the year, defensive freshman of the year. So he's Dylan Stewart that plays edge for South Carolina. Edge Colin Simmons, who we've mentioned numerous times on here, of Texas, and edge Kyron Duhan for UTEP. He's more of I see him more as an interior guy, but they've got him at edge. Then for the defensive line, they've got
Duhan's a smaller dude. He's definitely an edge, but he entered the portal like an hour ago.
Oh yeah, well there you go. And I wrote a piece on him on the on our Patreon. I've mentioned him, so yeah, somebody will get a big piece then because he had a good year as a freshman.
He did. He had 7 sacks. Him and him and Colin Simmons both had the same number of sacks, which was like.
And I got to see him firsthand.
17th or 18th in the nation, I think, overall.
Yeah, I got to see him firsthand when they played Tennessee a few weeks ago. So, and he played really well. I think he had a sack or a sack and a half against us in that game. So he's got some talent. So it doesn't surprise me that he's in the portal. So they only had one defensive lineman listed, Jaden Jackson for Oklahoma. They had 2 linebackers, Simeon Coleman for Cincinnati and Sammy Brown for Clemson. That was a no-brainer. Brown just he's just too damn good to not be there. And he's still got 2 more years at least with the Tigers. So that's huge. They had 2 corners,
3 corners.
Frederic. Oh, yeah, 3 corners. O.J. Frederic of Miami, Jay Crawford of Auburn, and Eli Bowen for Oklahoma. And then their 2 safeties and maybe 2 of the best IDP freshmen in the country, Coy Parrish and K.J. Bolden. Different players. Bolden is more of your strong safety, hitter, enforcer type, and man, he's going to be good for the Bulldogs. And then Coy Parrish, I loved him coming out of high school. I seen him last year in the Under Armour All-American game. That's where I first latched onto him, and I was like, man, he's going to be something. And what a season! I think he finished second right now. We still got the bowl games and the playoffs, but I think he's second right now in the NCAA in interceptions with 5. And he's more of your free safety type. But, I mean, he can hit, has home run speed. He can do a little bit of everything. So, yeah.
Interesting, they have no tight end. Only
I saw that.
No tight end, only 2 line. And it's just interesting how, like, when you see these lists, and even, like, the all-conference teams, like, when – I don't know. To me, like, maybe my thinking is wrong, but I feel like you should have a team, right? And so there should be a tight end. Right. Instead of 3 edges, you should have 2 edges and 2 D tackles. Right. But far too often, like, you look at some of the conference teams, and like it's just D line, and I can tell you it's dominated by edges. You don't see D tackles get the recognition because, I mean, just face it, like edges are going to get more sacks than a D tackle. That's just the way the system works. But it doesn't mean that the D tackles aren't good. I don't know. I personally would rather see them, kind of be more, strict with the positions,
Right, and I would have liked to seen them add a third linebacker here too. I mean, because a lot of places are playing 3 linebackers, sometimes even 4. So, I agree with you on that.
I mean, I get 3 receivers. Sure, I don't have a problem with that, but there needs to be a tight end as well. And like you said, another linebacker too is what I would add to the list if it was up to me. But I don't think I'd have 3 corners. I think I'd have 2 DNs or 2 edges, I should say, 2 D tackles, 3 backers, 2 cornerbacks, 2 safeties.
Yep, I agree. Yep. That kind of does it for the news and notes. Want to take a minute to give a huge shout out to our good friend and Sal Cusimano, who is the official winner of the Devy IDP Grind Listener League Campus Championship for this year. Unfortunately, he knocked you out.
He did, man. It was like it was a pretty close game. It was a super close game. Super close game.
Yeah, that was crazy. I think both agents scored over 400 points, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the total
win was like just a handful of points, wasn't it?
It was one. He won by 1.3 points. 1.3.
Wow. What a game. I kept watching. I'm like, I can't wait till y'all do the updates on defense.
Yeah, my defense outscored his defense, but I didn't outscore him enough. And it didn't help. I took 2 zeros in my lineup. Ja'Cory Brooks, Louisville, and who apparently only thing he did all that day was return 2 punts. He didn't play a snap at wide receiver. Why? I don't know. And then Seth Coleman, Illinois didn't play. So I took a 0 there. And then Sal took a 0 too at quarterback. So we both had our zeros, and we both still scored over 400 points, which is pretty damn good.
I remember looking at it before you updated the defense. I remember looking at some of the rosters. I guess it was Saturday around 5 or 6 o'clock, and I was like, man, Sal's got a 0 at quarterback. This can't be good, I was like, I admit, I was kind of thinking, damn, Justice is going to win this thing, and it just – but, yeah, and then you said – then when you come out and said, okay, we're separated by like 2 or 3 points, I've still got to do the IDP side, and I was like, man, if Sal wins this with a 0, this would be insane. It was a good game, though. Both of you, man. To score 400 points and have zeros in your lineup, that's pretty
It was.
impressive.
I mean, the IDP was so close. I initially scored it, and so when I initially scored it, and I was like, man, this is close. So I sent everything to Sal to let him go through it, and then he thought he lost because he messaged me like 2 or 3 times, congratulations, you won, because he could not find QB hurries or hits anywhere, so he wasn't giving my team or his team the credit for those points. So he thought he lost by 2 points. And so I was like, so I went back and I hand scored, because it was so close, I hand scored every single player. And I came back to the same result. And so I messaged him, said congrats, and then I posted everything. But we were waiting to see if Fantrax was going to post a stat correction. Fantrax generally posts stat corrections by Friday, but they had by Wednesday, I'm sorry, so we were going to wait till Wednesday. But one thing we noticed, that we both noticed, and I had never seen this before, and I didn't pay attention to the date at first. There was a stat correction in there for Taj Brooks that happened Monday. Well, Taj Brooks, running back for Texas Tech, Sal owned him. and he went from 38 points
wow.
to 0 points. And there's a checkbox that says it was not applied. And so I didn't pay attention to the date at first. I only saw the date when the correction happened, and I was like, "Well, that's weird because if like he loses 38 points, then I win." So, so anyway, I emailed Fantrax and said, "Hey, what's going on? Why wasn't this one applied?" And then before Fantrax responded to me, Sal messaged me back and said, "Yeah, I noticed that, but that's from last week's game." So Fantrax did a stat correction from Saturday, November 23rd, but they didn't do it until Monday, December 2nd.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so then when Fantrax emailed me back, they said, "Well, it happened a week later. That's why we didn't do it." And so I was like, "Oh, but at that point I assumed that's probably why it was, but just kind of surprising that they would do. I mean, like I see a stat correction for the Texas Tech quarterback. He went from 366 yards to 401 yards. That's a big difference. And to happen a week later, it's kind of crazy, but
it's crazy to have something that much later. If you're not paying attention, that could have really messed you up as far as your scoring goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I just assumed that Fantrax, once it got to Wednesday, that they stopped it, but it's not the case. They'll put it out there. They just won't apply it to the team.
Yeah, you would think they would cut off of some type. You would think at some point they would have some kind of set date where, wherever they get their corrections from, you would think there's a certain point where they say, okay, if it ain't in by this date, we're not going to recognize it. Because I would have to think if that could potentially change everything, like from that week that it actually happened, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising to me. But yeah, congratulations, Sal, on the big win. Yeah. As soon as the stuff comes in, I'll be getting with you on your address and sending you a winner's package. So, again, congratulations! And in that package, you'll be getting a ring from our good pals over at Trophy Smack. They're kind enough to donate hardware for our Listener League winners. So each year, as y'all know, they donate rings to us for our Listener League. So as soon as all that stuff comes in, we'll be getting those out to our Listener League winners. But yeah, again, thanks. Congratulations, Sal, on a big season. It's conference championship week, right?
Got 3 games tonight.
3 games tonight. Western Kentucky at Jacksonville State. UNLV at Boise State. That could have some big implications. And then Tulane at Army is your 3 tonight. And then tomorrow you've got Iowa State at Arizona State, Ohio, and our good friend Shay Taylor going to Miami of Ohio. Then you've got Georgia at Texas, Marshall at Louisiana, Penn State at Oregon, and Clemson at SMU. So a pretty packed day, or weekend, I should say, college football. With that, the college football playoffs are pretty much set.
Some breaking news here. Somebody's reporting that, this is what it says. Per sources, I'm told Bill Belichick's negotiations with North Carolina include a guarantee that Stephen Belichick will be named the school's head coach in waiting. UNC is open to that guarantee. Discussions are not a bid to gain leverage for NFL offers, and Bill Belichick is open to the move.
Wow.
Crazy stuff.
That is crazy. So he's not doing it for an NFL kind of a hostage thing. And
Or to drum up some business.
yeah, and he's getting his son as the coach in waiting. That's wow.
His son, I think, wasn't his son the defensive coordinator at Washington this year, I believe?
I believe so, yeah. Yep. Wow. That's an interesting twist on a coaching hire. So you're basically hiring your next two coaches. You're hiring Bill Belichick to be your current coach and let him coach to however long he wants to coach, I guess. But once he's done, you've already got your successor in place.
Yeah.
Wow. That takes some that takes a little bit of balls, I guess, to
kind of crazy.
yeah, that's wow. I don't even know what to think about that. I mean, that's pretty. I mean, what if you hire Bill Belichick in there? And not saying it's going to happen. I'm just what if in here. But what if he comes in and coaches a couple of years and just shits the bed, And then you've already got, because he's naturally going to bring his son with him if he takes this job. So you're probably going to see some of his coaching, as an assistant. You're going to have an idea, a feel for him. Man, that's crazy. That's ballsy. I'll have to say I don't know that many universities or programs would say, okay, we're going to hire you, but we're also going to hire our coach when you're done at the same time. It's basically what you're hiring for one. So, wow, that's crazy. Now, the question is, how much do they pay him? Because I have to imagine he's not doing this cheaply, being Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I don't know. Kind of interesting. But
that was crazy. Wow.
Back to the conference championships. One thing that I don't know is kind of disappointing to me is that like the games tonight, like they're pretty much all the same time. Like that just I don't know. Like to me, that shouldn't happen. Like what do we have? 9 games. 9 games.
You've got one at 7. Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State's 7, and then UNLV, Boise, and Tulane and Army both start at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, like I don't know. I'd like to see some gaps there. I'd like to watch all 9 of them, right? But you're gonna have to pick and choose. Especially tonight, you're gonna have to.
I could kind of see tonight's kind of starting, but like the Boise State and UNLV, that's the West game, and I guess we're pulling it up so they can for the East Coast on it, right? I understand that part. Why not start your, and I get their own different networks, which can be an issue, but why not start Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State instead of 7? Say start it at 6, and then
start 1 and 8, 6, 8, and 10, something like that.
Exactly. And kind of stagger them out at least a little bit. But yeah. And tomorrow's a little better because you got 2 at noon. You have the one big game, Georgia, Texas at 4. Then you've got Marshall, Louisiana, which is not really a big game, but it's at 7:30. And then you got the other 2 big ones, Penn State and Oregon, Clemson and SMU. Both of those are at 8. Yeah, I would like to go to watch all these, like you. I guess they would space those up a little bit. But some of these games will go to finalizing seeds, home field advantage, and possibly the last couple of entries in the college football playoffs. I think for the most part, the field is set. There still could be some changes like Clemson out. SMU's a big one. As to who gets in. Penn State, Oregon, Georgia, Texas are big because of the seeding.
The Mountain West championship game too is whoever gets in. Whoever wins between Boise State and UNLV will get in.
Yes.
I mean, Boise State's in now, but If Boise State loses,
Right.
they ain't going to be in, and UNLV will get in.
So, question for you, and it's not a hate question, but we've seen currently that Ole Miss is out. I forget who the other one was. There was a couple teams that are outside. South Carolina, Miami. They're on the outside looking in. If Georgia loses to Texas, that gives them 3 losses. Do you feel they're still
Well,
the best 12 should be in the Ville?
I think the reality of the situation is, okay, let's take SMU and Georgia. Take Georgia, right? Let's say they both lose and they both don't get in, then it kind of sends, especially in SMU's case, it really kind of sends a message to these teams, hey, because in SMU, let's say SMU was in the championship game. Are they in the playoffs with only 1 loss? Are they in the playoffs?
If they win?
No, if they weren't even in the championship game. Let's say today, are they in the playoffs?
I would put them in there, I think.
I think they're in.
That's kind of my point.
They're in.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to hold it against them for losing the championship game, then you know what's going to start happening? Teams are going to say, "No, we're good. We don't want to play in the championship game." I mean, that's what I would do.
Exactly.
And so,
and Lane Kiffin's kind of alluded to that.
I think in the case of SMU and possibly Georgia, if they both lose and don't get in, I think they're probably still going to be in because, again, like yeah. I mean, I don't see how. I don't know. Especially SMU, I don't see how you leave them out because then, like I said, teams are going to say, well, we don't want to play in the championship game because we didn't play in the championship game. We wouldn't have that extra loss. Then, so we need some, so that we, I think it's a bad look.
Yeah. Here's another thing that's kind of concerning with these championship games. At least to me, I've heard around the country, way more popular than me and knows way more about football than I do. Your conference champions top 4 or your 5th conference champion, whatever, goes to number 5 if he's got the record. However that plays out. How is the committee? How do you think the committee? I don't have a good feel for anything this committee does, right? So, if you lose SMU, let's say they lose Georgia, let's say they lose a Boise State, say they lose, say any of these, Oregon and Penn State, right? There's 2 more. One of those are definitely going to lose, right? Naturally, the winner is going to be in that top 4 seed, getting a bye or whatever. How do they handle the losers? Because I've seen the scenario and I've heard it out there that they're not going to penalize you for losing a conference championship game per se, but what does that actually mean? Does that mean Georgia, for instance? Let's do it this way. Georgia loses to Texas, they have 3 losses. I would think me and you both agree that they're still a playoff team, correct?
I would think so.
Okay. Now, if I can talk, will the committee, and I've heard this out there, if they're not going to penalize them, does that mean that they're going to stay a home field advantage team in the next after those first 5?
No, I don't think that. I don't think that would happen. I mean, Wait, the Georgia case would be interesting, right? Because
Right.
both them and Bama have 3 losses. Bama beat them head to head, and so if you put Georgia in and left Bama out, that's just a whole nother interest. I don't know. Yeah, that'd be the real winner in this, in my opinion, is your Volunteers. They should be rooting for Georgia to lose.
Yeah, we're actually, I think we should be rooting for a lot, right?
You should be rooting for Georgia to lose. Probably SMU to lose too.
And Penn State. We need
yeah.
we need Ohio State to put a thumping on the lines, Nittany lines.
Yeah.
Now, there's my question, because see, that's a whole nother question, and it kind of tied into what I was asking you. Theoretically, if Oregon thumps Penn State, right? If they go out here and they beat them, I don't know, 30-10 or 35-16, whatever it is, if they put a pretty good ass whipping on them, that means Penn State's, they're out of that top 4. They're not going to win. They're not a conference champion. They're going to fall. So how do you penalize them? How does the committee view them, right? They say they're not going to penalize a conference champion. Does that mean that they are going to drop far enough back that a team like Tennessee can move in? Because right now, Tennessee and Ohio State are 8-9, or 8-9, or whatever it is. They are the line. That's the line. Tennessee's Ohio State would have home field advantage over Tennessee right now. And if something was to happen, those two could flip. But would they push a third-ranked Penn State in a loss? Would they push them far enough down that Tennessee could move up? Like you said, we want Georgia to lose. We need Penn State to lose, SMU to lose. Tennessee kind of needs the chaos to get a home field game. Me personally, I'll mortgage everything I own if we get a home game. But seriously, I'm just happy that we're in it. But I don't know. I think I just don't know what the feel of the committee is and how they're going to do this. I guess we'll find out in a few days after this all settles. I
just saw something else too. Coaching news: Rich Rodriguez. Okay. Rich Rod is reportedly set to interview for the West Virginia head coaching job. So they come first full circle. Really? They fired the dude, right?
Oh my god!
they're gonna rehire him. Interesting. Interesting.
We changed our mind.
Crazy, man. It's crazy.
Take the names away. Georgia, Alabama. Examples: A, B, C, D. Whatever. Do you feel a 3-loss team should be in the playoffs?
Man, it's tough. Yeah, I mean, like, if you ask me, like, to pick between Miami and Alabama, I'd probably pick Miami.
See, that's kind of where I'm at with it too. I think Ole Miss has got a legit gripe to be in.
I mean, like, I'll be honest with you, like, from a team that's playing the best as of late, if I was going to pick a 3-loss team, I think I'd take South Carolina.
I would too. I mean,
they've
been red hot, man.
They have been on fire, lately. Yeah, I think that's who I would take, but I mean, it's hard to argue they lost to LSU, Ole Miss, and Alabama, right?
Right.
And other than the Ole Miss game, the games were close. But I mean, I feel like they're playing as well as anybody else in the country right now.
And you've got Alabama currently. They're in at number 12. I think they're ranked 13th. So you've got them in with 3 losses, with one of their losses being the Vanderbilt.
Well, I don't even think that's the worst loss. The worst loss is the Oklahoma game. And
Oh yeah, that was horrible.
And it wasn't even close. Like they got freaking stomped. I mean, Vanderbilt, while Vanderbilt's not like great, Vanderbilt's wasn't a terrible team this year.
No, they were actually pretty good.
Yeah, and so that loss, whatever. The Oklahoma loss is the one that's freaking bad.
Yeah, I was stunned by that because I thought Alabama would go in there and thump them. I really did, because Oklahoma's not that good.
No, I mean, they were terrible this year.
And they're so terrible that if you're watching some of this transfer portal, they've had a lot of dudes hit the portal already. It's like, this is not what we signed up for. And no disrespect to Brent Venables, he's a good coach, but I don't know that he's, in my opinion, I don't feel like he's a head coach material. I think he's a great assistant in a role like that. He knows defense. I think that's kind of where he really makes his mark. But yeah, Oklahoma, I mean, they've just not been good this year, and I was shocked that they beat Alabama. I was, especially like you said, it wasn't even as close as the score said.
Well, they did bring in Ben Arbuckle as their new OC from Washington State. So he's had a good offense up there at Washington State. Be interesting to see how that translates to the SEC. And then, of course, the rumors are that his the Washington State quarterback, John Mateer, is going to follow him. I'd be interested to see how I mean, he had an amazing season this year, but that was against the Mountain West. Yeah, I don't. Personal opinion is I don't know that he's a good enough passer to be in the SEC, but we might find out. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting offseason.
Oh yeah, with the portal and with the recruiting, does recruiting window open back up in February? Isn't there another window there?
No, the other one is in April, I believe. April or May. I think it's April though.
I was thinking they moved it back for some reason. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
I'm pretty sure it's April.
Okay. And that kicks off the new class, correct?
What do you mean the new class?
That'll transition in from 24 to 25 or whatever, 25 to 26, right? That window, that class window changes or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, you'll see kids. I mean, some kids are early enrollees, and you saw early enrollees leave in the spring too. So
something interesting I heard on the radio while we're talking about recruiting. And I have to remember which way it was. Either they're wanting to take this upcoming window like we had this week or this upcoming week. There's talk of maybe moving it back to August, the 1st of August. Because a lot of players, they want to go ahead and get this, committed, get all that out of the way so they can just play their senior season and be done with it. And coaches are wanting to have all this done too, right? I mean, it's hard to coach year round and then try to deal with the portal stuff and the NIL stuff, and then have to do the recruiting in season too. So I think there's a sentiment where
the coaches
would like to have this. Yeah, they would like to have most of this took care of before the season's kickoff, which makes sense, right? If you already know where you want to commit and go play your ball, then I think that would work. I know they moved it in December to get ahead of the bowl games, but I don't know. Just a thought. I'd heard a radio head talking about it. They there's some interest there. Whether that happens or not, I don't really know. But, man, like you said, it's going to be – the next few weeks are going to be insane because you got the playoffs here. You've got the portal window. You've got recruiting. You've got head coaching changes. It's crazy. It's a crazy time. Did you have anything you wanted to go over before we get to Sal's questions? Or
sure. Kind of go over, I guess, the maybe the season leaders. And I can tell you who my MVP is of the season. But we'll do that after this. Who do you think the number one defensive lineman was for fantasy scoring this year?
I'm trying not to look. Number one defensive fantasy lineman. So we're saying defensive tackles, right?
Yeah, the whole 9 yards.
I'm trying to run through the names, and it's not. It's nobody from Georgia.
No, Georgia's not even anywhere on the. I don't know.
I know a lot of people would jump to them, and rightfully so, but it's not them. I feel like it's not even in a Power 4. I don't know.
Michael Green, Marshall, defensive lineman.
Oh, yeah.
He was tied for the lead in sacks with Antoine Powell. He had 16 sacks, 73 tackles, and 16 sacks. There's only – well, no, I can't say that.
I should have known that because I just did an article on him too.
He did not lead – in tackles. Donovan Ezeruka from Boston College had 3 more tackles than he did. But 70 tackles and 16 sacks is pretty damn good from a defensive lineman. And Donovan Ezeruku from Boston College was number 2. Michael Green ended up with 174 points. Donovan, 167. Antoine Powell, Virginia Tech, 144. He had 16 sacks. And then Trey White, San Diego State, 141 at 12 sacks. And then if you want to count Suntarine Perkins that's kind of what he played this year was edge for Ole Miss. He was number 5 with 140 points, 10 sacks.
Yeah, I should have known he was the leader. Green. I just did a piece on that.
What about linebacker? You want to take a guess on who the, I don't know, top 2? You should be able to get number 1 easy, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's got to be Dolak, I would imagine.
Yeah, Sean Dolak, pretty easily number 1. Who do you think number 2 is?
Number 2.
Number 1 and 2 are like way above everybody else in terms of points.
Yeah. I'm trying to think right off. So Sean Dolak. Oh, who's the guy? I can see it, but give me just Dolak.
While you're thinking, Sean Dolak had 277 points, 159 total tackles, 76 solos, 4 assists, 16 tackles for loss, 5 interceptions. He also had a pick 6. The number 2 guy had 250 points. He had
either. I'm going to say it's either Schlesinger from UCLA or Dolak's teammate. What's his name? Is it Murdoch?
Red Murdoch. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those.
It's Carson Schlesinger from UCLA. He had 90 solo tackles.
Yeah, he had a heck of a season.
He ended up with 250. So you had Dolak 277, Schlesinger 250, and then it drops down to 217, which is Travion Barnes, Florida International. And then you had 2 guys with 215, Red Murdoch, Sean Dolak's teammate from Buffalo, and Jackson Woodard from UNLV. What about DBs, not including Travis Hunter, because he had some offensive. He had offensive stats, but just strictly defensive stats only. Who you think the number one DB was?
I don't know what his tackle numbers are off the top of my head, but I do know he led the NCAA in interceptions. Noel Williams for California. I don't know if he's the one, but
no, he's not even. I don't see him. I don't know where he is on the list, but he's not near the top. It's a safety. It's a safety.
Okay.
He had 117 total tackles, 4 interceptions. Plays in the G5.
Yeah, it wouldn't be I can't think of his name, but you mentioned his teammate a minute ago. Mike Green's teammate.
Oh, J.J. Roberts? No.
Yeah.
No, not J.J. Roberts. It is Jordan Vincent, Utah State. He had 196 points. Number 2 was Nick Anderson, Wake Forest, 189 points. Number 3, Jonas Sanker, Virginia, 188 points. Number 4, Maxon Hook from Toledo, 181 points. And then number 5 is Dylan Thieneman from Purdue, 178 points.
Nice. Nick
Amanawore was number, let's see, 6, 7, 8, number 9.
He had a big season for South Carolina.
He did. Jalen Catalon looks like probably number 13 or something like that. 10, 11, 12. Yep, number 13, Jalen Catalon for UNLV. Nice bounce back year for him.
Yeah, seems like he's played forever, but yeah, he kind of disappeared for what, a year and a half. I know
2
he was
years.
injured, so
2 years.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. I always feel like your G5s are going to be more of your leaders as far as fantasy goes, just because of the level of competition, right?
Well, if you get an elite guy like a Michael Green,
right? Anything else?
No, that's pretty much it. And I think all those guys. Well, we Green's not out of eligibility, but I'm pretty confident he's going to go to the NFL. Dolak has an extra year if he wants it, and I believe Jordan Vincent. I believe Jordan Vincent is out of eligibility. I'd have to look into that. But I think he is. So we could lose all 3 of them.
Right.
I mean, Green. What do you think of Michael Green? I mean, folks are. I mean, I saw a mock draft and they put him in the first round. I've seen others say he's a top 50 draft pick.
I don't think he'll be a first rounder. I don't see that. One, because I think this class potentially there's Tuamalo, a bunch of guys like that, right? You got Abdul Carter coming out. I just think this class potentially has so many top level talents at the position. I don't see Green being a first or second rounder. I think best case maybe third, but fourth round range, in my opinion. Now I need to go back and watch more tape and whatever, but I just think with the depth of the class and the talent of the class, I think that kind of pushes him down a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah. Vincent's out of eligibility. So, and Green's probably off the NFL. So Dolak is the only one that's, I'd say, has of the three, he probably has the best shot to return, because I don't see Green returning, and Vincent's out of eligibility. I think Green needs to go to a team that plays a 3-4. I think, right? Because I think he's more of a he's not a traditional defensive end. He's not big enough. I think he's more of that outside linebacker edge guy. But he's fast, man. He's fast, doesn't quit. I was just going to come down to the combine testing and all that, but I could see him sneaking into the 30th slot or something like that. Somebody's going to be enamored with the potential, man. And, and they might take a shot. I can see the back half of the first round, somebody taking a shot.
Yeah, if he tests well and shows well, like some of these all-star games or whatever, like you said, the combine, pro days. Yeah, for me, I think this class is so potentially heavy with talent at that position. I think that kind of hurts him. But you're right. If somebody falls in love with what they see with him, then yeah, it's possible. I just kind of feel like he's a third or fourth rounder. As of now, things can always change, but I think from what we've seen, I just kind of feel that's where he's at right now.
You're right. There's some good ones. You got Abdul Carter, Antoine Powell from Virginia Tech.
As a Ruoke that you mentioned, he's going to be
Boston College. James Pierce, Scourton. Yeah, it's a which edge do you think goes number one? The number one, or who's the top edge drafted? Do you think that is?
Oh man!
Again, it's got the combine can change, but if you're picking today, who do you think that guy is?
If I'm an NFL team scout coach, whatever, it's going to be. I'm taking James Pierce because I think is a lot higher than some of the others. But I think Scourton and Carter are definitely in that conversation. I think you're three, and I should. I kind of feel like the board because I think they're going to look at Pierce and say, okay, he's a little bit smaller or slender. Not small, that's not the right word. He needs to add a little weight or whatever. Probably needs to work in his run defense a little bit more than the other two. I think what helps Carter is he's had some experience at linebacker moving up to D-line. We've kind of seen that with Micah Parsons, right? You kind of saw that with Chop Robinson, so I think he's going to follow that. Scourton, I think, is a little bit bigger guy, right? He's kind of more of your 4-3 edge, I think, in my opinion. So I'm going to say Carter's probably your first one off the board, but I think the other two are going to be really, really close. And I think it depends on what you're looking for in an edge rusher, right? If you're looking for that pure speed to power bend combo, I think it's Pierce. If you're looking for a bigger type edge setter, I think it's Scourton. And if you're looking for like the ball, I think it's Carter. Because they're all three different, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think for me it'd be Carter.
Yeah,
I do think this linebacker class is going to be better than what we've had the last few years.
Yeah, And you've got JT Tuamalo and Jack Sawyer, which I think they're that very next tier. Those two are. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. I think there's a couple more, and I can't think right off. But I think those three, and then Sawyer, Tuamalo, and some others, I think fill that next bracket. I think it's going to be Carter who will be the first one off the board, I think. We'll see. And like you said a minute ago, all it takes is one team to fall in love with you, right? And boom, to the moon. So,
yeah. I don't know that this safety class is as good as what we've seen, though. But I do think the linebacker class is better.
this what? Oh, safety. I think it's
I don't know that it's as good as it
from
has
what we've
been
seen in the past.
But I definitely think the linebackers are better.
Yeah. Thoughts on Sean Dolac, NFL wise? We've talked about this before, but
I think he can make it in the NFL.
I do too.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean,
he just needs a shot.
If
he can get the shot, he'll show him.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to count against him. Yeah, I think I think he can be. I think he could potentially start in the NFL.
I do too. Yeah, because I've seen a lot of linebackers in the NFL that he's better in, and they're starting. I'm like, really?
Yeah, absolutely.
With the attrition of injuries, right at that level, I mean, all he needs is to be on a roster to get a shot. I mean, look what we've seen this year. Just
look at the Detroit Lions, right? I mean,
exactly. Exactly. And I think a place like that, could you imagine a Sean Dolac in Detroit with Jack Campbell? I think would kind of solve.
You know where I'd like to see him go, though? You know where I'd like to see him go? Hometown. Stay with the Buffalo Bills. That'd be awesome.
Oh, that would be awesome. And be a good fit. I don't know that they're eating, though, well, I guess it depends on what they want to do with Milano, who just recently come back from injury. But they've got Dorian Williams, they've got Terrell Bernard, Ben Spector, which I think he's probably better than those. For me, yeah, I think he'd be a great fit in Buffalo for sure. So we have a couple questions from Sal. Before we get to that, thanks for following us. Please go over to the Patreon, check out a bunch of stuff. I've got stuff dropping left and right over there. Follow us on Twitter at Devy IDP Grind. Go to our Discord. We got all kinds of chats going on over there. High school, recruiting, college, transfer portal, NFL, all kinds of stuff. Go over there and check that out. But we thank you for supporting us. And Sal, one of our best listeners, one of our greatest followers, and again, this year's campus champion for our Devy IDP Listener League. He's wanted us to talk about spots where players are out of eligibility that could develop into big spots for new players in the future on the college side. For example, he says Dolick at Buffalo is out of eligibility, which I don't think is true. I don't believe, Justice. I think he still has one more year.
He has enough. Sean Dolac has another year of eligibility. Whether he wants to use it or not, I don't know. But he has another year of eligibility. And I would assume we will find out soon what his intentions are, I would assume. I mean, I don't know. Like, if I was him, to me, I feel like there's two options. That's declare for the NFL draft or potentially go to a bigger school. It sucks. I wouldn't want to see him leave Buffalo, but I just feel like, that's kind of, to me, that's the decision point. I don't know what he gains in terms of NFL by staying at Buffalo for another year. Sucks, but mean, he had a phenomenal season.
Yeah, and and I'm glad you mentioned that because I think this kind of ties with what Sal's asking too. Like I said, he gave Dolak an example. He's out at Buffalo, but he does have another year left. But is out of eligibility, someone is coming up to take that spot. So when a player leaves, when they graduate or whatever, there's someone coming for their spot. Not counting the portal, whatever. He's wanting to know not necessarily names.
Well, I think for defensive purposes, I don't think it's quite as easy as you see on the offense. It's not plug and play. It just isn't.
Right.
I mean, let's use another example. Look what Jason Henderson did, right? Led the nation in tackles. He sat out pretty much the whole year except for half of the game against South Carolina. His replacement, he ain't number one in tackles. And so it's just not like I'm trying to look now to see where he ended up, but Koa Nawataloa, he ended up 87 tackles. 87. That's like almost 100 tackles less than Jason Henderson. So it's just not plug and play on the defensive side, man. Like
it's not, but I think Sal's example of Dolak, even though he does have another year of eligibility, and this is kind of like what you said, he's got two choices, right? Either NFL or he comes back and transfers. So either way, there's an opening there, and I think Buffalo has.
Well, they have Red Murdoch, right? Obviously,
they have a third guy that I'm not going to mention. They have a third guy that's going to be just as good as these two, I think, or at least close. So
Red Murdoch was number 2 in tackles.
Right. So I think if Dolak says, "Hey, I'm off to the NFL," Buffalo's got Murdoch and this other guy who's really young. I got a piece on him on Patreon. I think they're okay with him going to the NFL. I think they're okay if he decides to come back and transfer. And I would almost bet they would welcome him with open arms if he wanted to stay at Buffalo. And I'm like you. I think if he comes back to college, what does he really have to gain by staying at Buffalo, right? He's proven everything he can prove with that type of team. Does he want to transfer to, I don't know, an SC team or a SC, or does he step up in class, if you will, to try to prove that he's just as good? And I think that's Buffalo itself. I think I don't want to say they could care less, but they're set no matter what his decision is, because they have two guys coming behind him that, for the most part, can fill his role just as good, maybe, or at least close to it. So I don't know. I mean,
obviously they're going to replace him, right? They're going to replace him with somebody. My point is that you should not be expecting a 1-for-1. I just feel like
correct.
I feel like that is very rare on the defensive side.
Yes, I would agree with that.
It just doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, I mean,
but I do think there's certain. I guess what I agree with you, but I also kind of see what Sal's getting at too, like Dolak leaving. We talked about.
But I think when I think of it, I think of okay, well, like for instance, Rich Rodriguez, right? You want his running back and quarterback. You know that. And it doesn't matter who those two guys are, they're going to put stats up. I just don't feel like on the defensive side, like you can confidently say that.
Yeah,
it's not as cut and dry, I guess, is the best way to say it.
I would agree with that, but I do think there is some situations. Iowa, for example, you tend to look at
they're going to put up numbers, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So I agree with that. He also wants to know if maybe we could talk about MVPs on the IDP side for the year as well. That would be a good close to the fantasy season show. I don't know that can really talk about it today. Maybe we'll put
I
that
can
up.
tell you who my MVP is. To me, it's an easy choice. I think my personal opinion is there's two choices, but I think one stands up above the rest, and that's Mike Green. Not to take, and I think the other choice is Sean Dolak, and not to take away from what Sean Dolak did, but man, 16 sacks. That's
a lot.
To me, that's more impressive than 159 tackles.
Yeah,
I mean, plus he
agree
had
with
73 tackles, so it wasn't like he sucked in tackles either. I just think like what Mike Green did is much more rare. 73 tackles, 16 sacks, 20 tackles for loss. Like that just doesn't. That's an exceptional year. I mean, like
and that's, I guess, an example. That's kind of equating him to like a TJ Watt season, right? Where you have 90 plus tackles and 15 plus sacks. I mean, that's hard to do in the NFL. In the NFL, if you can get 70 tackles and 10 sacks out of a defensive end, you're doing something. Because even at those marks, there's a small group there. Because either A, they don't get the tackles, or B, they don't get the sacks. So, and TJ Watt just blows both of those by. So I agree with you. Mike Green, I think what he does, 73 tackles, 16 sacks, that's pretty rarefied air that you really don't see a whole lot of. But I'm not hating on Sean Dolak. Not that you were. I'm just saying.
No. But I'm just saying, like,
it's easier to find those tackles at linebacker than it is what Green did.
The sacks. Yes.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think what he did was harder.
Yeah, I agree. And for fantasy, especially in a position specific league, right? I think that kind of amplifies it because, for one, nothing changes for Dolak in fantasy terms. Nothing changes for Dolak from, let's say, a general league D-line, DB, linebacker to a position specific. Nothing changes for him. But for Mike Green, his value shoots up even more because you're taking him out of that D-line group or potentially that linebacker group if you want to put him in that edge thing. I think when you say defensive end, it shoots his value way up, which it's already high to begin with.
Yeah.
I think it kind of goes back to, like you said a couple of weeks ago, you didn't really notice or realize the true value of defensive tackles in fantasy for IDP Devy, right? It's so much harder to find that. Well, I think in position-specific leagues, I think that kind of correlates to that. When you can find a player that's that good at a certain position and you're sure you can play him at an edge or you can play him as a D-line or whatever. I don't really care for those leagues. I like the position specific because I think it puts a more emphasized value on A, the position, and B, a player who excels at that position. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah. Good question, Sal. I know we kind of didn't really answer those per se, but
I think we will answer them, but it's going to be in the off season. Like a lot of those questions, like you can't really answer them today because number one, you don't know who's leaving, you don't know where people are going, you don't know who's leaving early for the NFL. So I think those are all questions that we always talk about every off season, and so we'll talk about it again.
Yeah, and we were talking before we jumped on, when we do our off-season conference and team breakdowns, right, where we go through and say, okay, this is who's rostered, so-and-so left, so-and-so's in now. I think these questions will get answered more there. Because like you said, you've got the portal, you've got recruiting, you've got all kinds of stuff to go through. I mean, it's just
NFL
too hard right now to kind of Anything else?
No. Congrats again, Sal.
Yes, Sal, congrats on a much-deserved and hard-fought victory. I know that pains Justice to
Hey, I don't mind losing to Sal. Sal puts a lot of work in these leagues, and so I have no qualms about losing to Sal. I mean, I don't like losing. Don't get me wrong, but
right.
It's not like Sal lucked into it. He puts a lot of effort. He has a good team.
He does.
So
he's always asking questions. He's always making moves, and the funny thing is he's fighting you for the campus championship last week. And at the same time, in this league on the Canton side, he's facing me. So, and he gave me just as hard a fight last week on the Canton side as he did you on the campus. So, yeah, Sal does put a lot of work into these. So, glad to see him come away with the championship. So, yeah. And a little side note, I wish we had a league full of Sals. I wish all my leagues were full of Sals and Justices and Chops and people like that, because, hey, I love to help, give advice or whatever. But when, last year I won the Canton side, last year you won the campus side. To me, it makes it that much more fun knowing owners like Sal are putting just as much effort, if not more than I am, into it. So winning, it kind of means more to me, right? These kind of leagues, I'm like, man, this is a great group of owners. It's better than just your random league that you sign up for on ESPN or whatever, Yeah,
absolutely. Like you said, I am with you. I wish we had a league full of Sals. I will say this. Yeah. I think just speaking in general, I think overall the league as a whole, we had some new additions this year, and I think all of them were great additions. Yes. I felt like the league as a whole, the competition level increased this past offseason. So,
greatly increased. We had is it Sean Smith? I think his last name's Smith that joined us this year. Another great owner. Has done well on both sides, actually.
AJ as well.
AJ, yep, AJ. So yeah, and then there's always openings. Sometimes people just have too much going on and they drop out, or maybe IDP is just not for them. They try it and they like to move on. So if we have an opening, we'll let you know. I've talked about it a couple times. I just don't know how I would pull it off. I've got a league for an idea for a league, and it's nothing. I've seen it in the past and played one in the past, and it kind of folded under due to some unforeseen circumstances. But I would like to start one, and it's a campus to Canton league where you start from scratch pretty much. Don't know how I would be able to do that, but that could be something I look at for next year trying to do. So if I can put that together, I may look for some owners to fill that as well. But I don't know if Chop has any openings in any of his leagues. If he does and you're interested, let me know, and I'll reach out and see if he's got any openings. But as of right now, I don't know of anybody else that has any openings. It's kind of too early to tell with the season just ending. So, but just stay tuned. We've got we always promote those openings when we get them. So, congrats again, Sal, and thanks to everyone who listens and follows us. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean, iHeartRadio, iTunes, wherever. Follow us on @Devy IDP Grind. You can follow me @Hollywood Titan. You can follow him @Justice. Oh, and be sure to follow Justice and his co-host Luke of the G5 Hive. Check them out. I saw you were in the top 5 of somebody's Spotify playlist.
We were number 1. That was awesome.
Congrats. Yeah. That was awesome. I was like, heck yeah. That's awesome.
Clint Carlson shared that with us. Yeah.
Hey, congrats to you guys. Y'all kill it. I love y'all's show. I do. I love it. It's one of my favorite listens or, watches on YouTube or whatever.
Thank you.
But check them out. You're welcome. Check them out. Send your questions, trades, whatever in. We'll be more than glad to help. Check out the Patreon. Check out our Discord. We got all kinds of stuff going on over there. And we'll be back next week. We'll probably be recapping the conference championship games. By then, we'll know how the field's set for the playoffs. We might look at some bowl games and stuff. So coming up, but we'll put something together. Just let us know, and we'll be back next week.